Hey guys, there is a chance that tomorrow, Friday the 1st of March, we will find out whether or not Palantir is due to be added to the S&P 500. This is not a guarantee, but it's also not pure speculation, so I wanted to make a whole video about it because I've seen a lot of you guys on various social medias talking about whether or not this is actually happening tomorrow, and I want to clear all of that up. So the first thing we have to understand is just about the S&P 500. How do stocks get added? How do stocks get removed? What does the rebalancing process of the S&P 500 actually look like? Well, the first thing to note is that the S&P 500 rebalancing is a quarterly event, meaning it takes place every 3 months, 4 times a year. The point of the rebalancing is just to make sure that the index accurately represents the market by adjusting the companies that are in the index and their weightings, just like you would rebalance your own portfolio. During this process, new companies also get added and companies can even be removed, ones that are no longer meeting the eligibility criteria. Now you're probably wondering, okay, well, how does a company actually become and remain eligible to be in the S&P 500? There are different eligibility criteria that they have to meet. They include things like market cap requirements. You have to be a publicly traded company for at least a 1-year period. And you have to have a positive sum of the previous 4 quarters of earnings as well as the most recent quarter. But once a company ticks off all of these requirements and, they are eligible to be included, it doesn't just mean, bam, they're included the next day. Because actually, once they're eligible, they then have to be actually selected by a committee. The Rebalancing Act itself, like I said, happens 4 times a year, and it actually happens after markets close on the 3rd Friday in March, June, September, and December, meaning that the next rebalancing event will happen on the 15th of March 2024, which is not very long away at all. But there is also an announcement made prior to this date. And this prior announcement is basically an advance notice. And that is really important because it basically allows the smooth implementation of the balance across the market. It allows investors and funds time to actually readjust their portfolios as necessary. And this announcement is meant to be happening tomorrow, Friday the 1st of March. So if this does happen, tomorrow, potentially as a Palantir community, we could get the heads up that Palantir will be added to the S&P 500 on Friday the 15th of March 2024 after markets close. So what actually happens if Palantir are included, and how likely is it that we will actually hear tomorrow that they are going to be? Well, it is very, very likely. We were anticipating that we could have had the announcement they could have been included during the last rebalancing event, but that didn't happen. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're guaranteed to be included this time around or the next time, but it also doesn't mean that they are not going to be included either. So it really does depend. But there are some other big names that are eligible that are also up for inclusion. I think they include Elf, so the beauty brand, SMCI, which has of course been on an absolute rampage recently, and Workday, I believe. You might want to fact check that, but there are some big names up. But ultimately, it will decide on how many companies are also leaving the index, because remember, S&P 500, about 500 or so companies are included. So if more get taken away, there's more gaps. And it basically comes down to the decision of the committee. And this committee basically decide which companies are going to be representing the US large cap market. If we don't hear tomorrow that Palantir are being included, and actually we hear that other companies are, it doesn't matter too much. We just have to wait another 3 months and find out if they are going to be included next time around. If Palantir are announced, we can expect, but not guarantee, that in the short term, Palantir's stock price will jump. You could argue that maybe this whole inclusion thing has already been built into Palantir's stock price. You could also argue that potentially it hasn't been already. If you have an opinion on that, let me know in the comments below. But what we would expect to see is that there will basically be some effect on the stock demand. So there will be an effect on the supply versus demand of Palantir stock. And this is because index funds, mutual funds, pension funds, basically any investment vehicle that is tracking the index will then be required to adjust their holdings to reflect the new indexes. The new makeup of the S&P 500 index. This then means there is more demand for Palantir shares. More people, big institutions owning lots and lots of money are purchasing shares. And this buying pressure can mean that the stock price goes up. Remember though that this is in the short term, and actually over the long term, this effect of being added to the S&P 500 index is not seen as greatly, and actually it gets a lot more complex. As we always say on this channel, when it comes to long-term investing, you want to be focusing on the company's future prospects, fundamentals, broader market conditions, etc., etc. So something like an S&P 500 inclusion, talking about the stock price only, is going to probably have an impact short term, but over many, many years, that effect just gets less and less impactful. So it's always best, regardless of what's happening, if you're not going to be trading this potential event, then just focus on the intrinsic value of the company. Now, something that I want to point out, just because a company gets added to the S&P 500, it does not automatically mark that company as a great investment. However, regardless of the short-term stock price impact of being included, getting added to the most known and most famous index ever, S&P 500, is a massive deal. It's a really, really significant achievement for any company. Number one, it's just massive recognition. It is like a big, big stamp of recognition saying this company has met the eligibility criteria. It's a company worth being in the S&P 500, worth representing the US large cap market. It's a good sign. Number two, it increases credibility. Those companies that it will then sit alongside are some of the biggest, most known, most successful, most loved companies in the entire world. So being alongside that, being in such a famous, well-tracked index is a big, big sign of credibility. It also increases visibility. This is because way more people, whether we're talking about retail investors or institutional investors, are now open to the idea of actually researching Palantir and buying Palantir shares. And actually, there are some firms out there that won't even take a look at a company if it's not included in the S&P 500. This increase in demand then also increases stock liquidity. Now, there is this whole thing called the S&P 500 phenomenon. And this is defined as the temporary increase in the price of a stock upon announcement of its inclusion in the S&P 500 index. And this is literally just due to the increase in institutional investors and retail investors to some extent buying shares. This pattern has been seen many, many times before, but please remember that it is only temporary, it's only short term, and it does settle. So let's just look at what happened to Tesla when it got added to the S&P 500. So it was announced that Tesla stock was getting added to the S&P 500 index on the 18th of November 2020. It then officially got added, the stock officially got added to the S&P 500 index on the 21st of December 2020. So let's just see what happened between those two dates, the announcement and the actual add-in. So let's just go back here. The announcement was made on the 18th of November. So we can see that let me just check these columns, open, high, low, close, yeah. So on November the 18th, the market opened, Tesla stock, $149.45 a share. After market closed, the announcement came out. At that time, the stock price was $162.21. So you can see that in one given day of trading, it went from $149.45 to $162.21. Then in the days following, the trading days following the announcement, before they actually got added, you can see, if we just look at the price at close, $162.21. It kept rising all the way up here. Oh, I can't highlight just one column, but you can see here. And it didn't, Tesla didn't actually get added until the 21st of December. So let's just look at the last trading day before they got added, which would be December the 18th, $231.67, which is a massive, massive price increase in a very short time period. $162.21, I think that's what I just said, to $231.67. And then in the weeks following the actual addition, so after Tesla was officially added to the index, we can see that the price had some fluctuations. On the 7th of January, it was trading at $272, which again is a significant price increase compared to the day that it actually got added. But then if you look at a price chart of Tesla, let's actually just do this. So the announcement came around this point here, and then Tesla got added to the index at around this point here. Then the stock price went up to highs here, 293 on the 8th of January. So there was, between announcement and being added, significant price increase, right? It's clearly shown. But what happened after? Well, actually it settled, and then it just came down to other catalysts, other fundamentals of the stock, other broader economic market conditions, all of that stuff that I was explaining earlier. So could it happen tomorrow? Yes, absolutely. If it doesn't, it is not the end of the world. We just wait until next time. If it does, it's exciting. It's a sign of recognition, increased visibility, increased credibility. Massive achievement for our little Palantir here that we've been following for a while. And we also expect, but remember, not guaranteed, that there may be some short-term price movement. So I hope this video's helped, a little bit of an impromptu video. If you want to add anything to this, leave a comment below. Let me know what you're thinking, how you're playing this move. Are you adding more shares beforehand, or are you just going to keep focusing on dollar cost averaging? Thanks so much for watching this video, guys, and all the support that you give me on this channel. It means a lot, and I will see you very soon in the next video.